This week, we're going to look at how to bud graft. It's the end of summer. Perfect time for bud grafting. Let's go. Before we start, just want to show you a rundown of what you'll need. First thing, I like to keep all my grafting things in one little toolbox, so that's my grafting toolbox. In there, I'll have a bag of tags. So we will simply write out what cultivar it is. Need a pen, need a clipboard to write them down. Second thing, we'll need parafilm. I'll put a link for it. You can get some parafilm, and one roll will do you for 40 or 50 trees. A grafting knife. You could use a utility knife if you don't have a grafting knife, but put in a new blade, please. And the last one is just some grafting elastics. You say, well, you know what? I have elastics. Here's an elastic. You don't want to use your old elastics. You say, look, it's a good elastic. It's even blue. These are not made UV stable. So if you think, hey, I'll just do that, trust me, we tried it. And if you use this on your grafts, within a week or 2 weeks exposed to the sun, you'll waste all your time because the elastics will fall apart and your grafts won't have taken. After you do a few hundred and you realize, what did I do? So get rid of these. You don't want to recycle. You really do want grafting elastics. They're UV stable. They'll last this year. You'll have to cut them next year. And so that's what you want to do. So there you go. Elastics, grafting tape, grafting or budding knife. Oh, and one last thing. Here's a great little book. I'll put the link below. Fruit tree propagation, done in the 50s by Agriculture Canada. It really is nice that it'll give you a step-by-step photo of all the types of grafting you'll need, including the one we're doing today, bud grafting. You can download it free. Great book. Clean bucket to put it in. Clean on the inside at least, clean water, and you'll put your bud sticks in there. That's it, we're ready to start. Most fruit that you buy come from trees that have been grafted, and most of them have been bud grafted. So let's do it step by step. First step, find a tree that you like, that you want to multiply. Here's a great, I like this pear tree. It's a Taylor Asian pear. Produces, this is a regrafted tree, 3 years old, regrafted. So we did this one as an overgraft. I like that tree. I want to propagate it. Second thing is finding the right branch to get buds from to propagate it. So here's a great branch. You want a branch that has good growth. And so here you can see it has to be this year's branch. So this, if you look on this branch all the way, you'll see that there's no growth ring of an annual growth ring. Just to compare the difference, let me show you one. So here's one. This grew this season. Here's the terminal bud. So that bud just formed recently. We're at the end of summer. This, if you look on the bark, it's all smooth all the way. And here, that's the golden spot. That was last year's terminal bud. So now you see this grew this year, this one. And all these spurs, they're called spurs, they grew this year as well. So this is last year's growth, and it grew all the way to here. So you don't want to take last year's growth for bud wood. You want this year's growth. So I could cut this one, but I'll leave it because this is such a nice branch. It will produce fruit here next year. I just want to leave, I don't like to cut the ends of the branches, but this is a sucker. So a sucker, we could train this down, but let's take this off for bud grafting. So now this becomes what we call a bud stick. This is a very vigorous growth, very good. First thing, as soon as you take it off, you want to reduce the water loss. I hear the clock ticking because as soon as you cut it, this branch and the leaves are starting to lose water and your buds are going to start losing their viability. So we reduce the surface that the leaves will transpire. Without leaves, it won't transpire. It won't lose much water. So if we were doing several grafts, then I would actually put this in water. Next step is find what tree do you want to graft. So let's find a tree or a rootstock that is ready to receive it. Let's check that out. That's quite long. So now we have our scions we gathered, or our bud sticks to be correct. Next thing, we choose the tree where we're gonna put it. So it could be either a rootstock. In this case, it's actually a pear cultivar that really sucked. It was the most recommended, but I don't want it, so we're gradually eliminating them. We tried an overgraft and it didn't work. So what I did was I came in and started cutting the base. So there's a cut here, and that forced a lot of new shoots close to the base, which are really nice now to be grafted on. So the next step is, since we choose this tree, is really just clear your workspace so you don't have, so we'll get rid of some of these branches that are really in our way, because we want to get rid of this whole top eventually. So just make it easier, so that sometimes they're spiny, especially rootstock, so you don't want to have them rubbing up to you. So first thing you want to do is just clear your branch where you're going to put your buds. So this is a nice one. We'll just, oh, actually the new growth is here, so you want to graft onto new growth. So let's take these off. Let's clear this out of the way. These are already a bud that's growing bigger, so this will be our spot right here. We want to put our buds between two buds. You see there's a bud there and there's a bud here. We want to graft in this zone. That's where we want to put our bud. Another little detail. South is there. It is a good practice to graft on the north side, just because it will be less subject to getting direct sun. As it grows, it's not a problem, but it's when it's very young that it can be a little tricky. You would like to get a bud about the same size, so I'll take it a little higher up. I don't want the top third, and I really don't want to use the bottom quarter here. So it's in this range that I'm looking for a bud. So first step, you want to, this is where you can really injure yourself. Grafting knife is basically a surgical scalpel. So I like using the palm of my hand. It's safe because I could rest my other hand on it. So you start a little, about a centimeter above, go through the bud and get a little bit below. Not quite enough there, so let's do that again. centimeter above, go through, and so that's what we want. That's our little bud, that's our future tree. There is one bud in there, and that will be our cultivar. Once you've taken it, you don't want to touch that. The clock starts, so once you've taken that, every minute will really reduce. After 2 minutes, you're gonna have, it's like a cut. You make a cut and that will heal over. So I've been basically talking, should have been grafting it, and so I'll get rid of it, but I just want to show you that it will heal very quickly, that cut, to reduce moisture loss. And so already it's getting to be too long. I'll leave it out. I could have put it in my mouth and then taken it out and put it in. That's another way of doing it. Sometimes some people put 3 or 4 and they're grafting several trees, and then they just grab it. And every time you grab it by the petiole. That's what you want. You want to grab it by here, don't grab the bud itself. So I'll get another one, but I'll show you preparing the tea before I get, no, I'll get another one. So again, so there's my bud. Now the next step I want to do, choosing my spot, I want to make a tea. It's called tea budding because just like on a tea, you have the upper line and then you go down lower. So that's all there is to it. The next step, I can take my budding tongue here, if you like, and I use that to separate or cause the bark to slip. And you'll know that you can bud graft because your bark is actually slipping. It's very kind of almost a little jelly-like. Next step, you've got your tea done. You just slide your bud right in. And you want to be sure you actually got it under both sides. And you want to force it in a little bit till it rests at the bottom. In this one, you've got quite a bit sticking out, and you can just trim that off because your bud is there. Some people remove the woody part. I've never done it and it worked fine. I just find it's one extra step. So there's my bud, surrounded by bark on both sides. And now the goal will be to actually hold it in place. So we take our parafilm, I'll cut off the older part, about 15 centimeters or 6 inches is enough. So all I want to do now is wrap the cut so it's not losing moisture. You can pull a little bit, stretch it, get it nice and tight is good, basically to the limit before it'll break. And then when you come to the bud, you can go over it with the parafilm. And I like to leave the petiole visible because it will indicate to you if your graft has actually succeeded or not. So that's good enough. When you get to the end, you could tie it off. I just like, you pull it and it's actually going to wrap. And next, we use our budding elastics or grafting elastics. And I know when I was in New Zealand, they just left it like that. I find whether the conditions are different here, our bark, 2 flaps of the bark want to split open if we don't tighten it down. So I start by putting a flap that will actually hold the elastic. And then you're just doing it basically like a shingle, because each layer you do covers the previous one. And while I'm wrapping, I'm actually holding it a little tight, really kind of snug. Go around the bud. Whoop. Go around the bud and When you get to the end, you make a loop, put your elastic through, grab it, pull it snug, and that's all there is. This petiole now is green. If you do it, Mark, have an idea of when you did it. So we're mid-August here. If in 2 weeks that's still green, I know that this bud is alive. If in 2 weeks I come back and by touching this it's browned out and falls off, then that bud dried out, so it won't take. It's not a wasted year. I can come back. Usually I like to graft a little higher. This is a fairly thin piece, but otherwise what I could do is I could come back and redo it lower down so I don't lose the season. So it's good to be able to graft sooner in the season that you can, and if you have to, come back, regraft, and not lose the season on that graft. So one of our rules, here we did one last year, and this was a springtime scion graft, and it didn't work, so you see how the elastic stays. That's what I was saying, these elastics actually last. And so in the spring, let's say this took, now it didn't, but what you could do is you just come back and you cut, and then you can take off your elastic. Don't let it lie around because these don't degrade well. And you just peel it off. You can see the parafilm is still there. And let me just show you that that one didn't take, so it actually did take and then it died. So what exactly happened? Let's try and see. But that was not a bud graft, that was a scion graft. So it was a piece of wood rather than just a bud. So it did start. For some reason, I think the reason that it didn't survive is that this bud down here woke up and grew so vigorously that it basically sucked all the juice. So the juice didn't go up anymore, even though it did grow. It grew that little bit and then it died. That was just, sometimes I don't come back. What I should have done is after it started to grow, I should have come back and cut both of these. But you know what? I'm not going to cut that one because we'll take advantage of it. Just clear some of these out of the way. Let's do this one. One of my rules as I get older is I only want to bend down once. So anytime we do something and we bend down to do it, let's just do another one. Why? We don't lose a season. So if I'm overgrafting or I'm regrafting these trees, I don't want to come back and have to do it again. So that was one graft and it didn't take, and so we've lost a year and a half, in fact, because that was last spring it was done, not this spring, it was the spring from last year. So now the point is, we always try to do two when we bend down. So here's one, we'll do this one, here's a nice area on that. Let's do it again. Maybe in faster motion this time. Sounds like we're having a lawnmower convention. I really recommend you practice this sitting down at a table. Get yourself a bunch of branches, sit down in the evening, and just start practicing. If you've done 50, you'll get the hang of it far more than if you try to make sure you'll succeed with it on your first go. Although we've done grafting workshops several times in the past, and when we let the students graft and they've never practiced, the success rate is usually around 50%. Pretty good for someone who's never grafted. And so that's why we say, look, just do two. Worst case, both of them catch and then we'll select which one we want. If none of them take, well, okay, then we have to come back. But 50%, I usually expect we'll get 80% once we've got the hang of it. And so 2, we're really pretty well sure we don't have to come back. So that's all there is to it this stage. We're late summer. Next spring, and like I said, check, make sure they're both took. Next spring, we can come in, we'll cut. So that will release the elastic off of them. And then with our secateurs, we'll come in and we'll cut above the bud. Because we don't want all this to grow, we want the bud to wake up. And I won't do it now, but that bud will then come up and form the new tree. And that's all there is to bud grafting. You do this, you can multiply, and you see that one bud stick, we could have still taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, easy 7 more, and we wasted a few. So you could usually get 5, 10, 15 buds off of one bud stick. So it doesn't take long. You can start multiplying your trees, and we did it on the base of a tree. We could have just as well done it on a branch of a tree. If you're just in your backyard and you say, I want to do this permaculture orchard stuff, and I only have one tree. Great, use that one tree to create your collection. Start collecting budwood of different cultivars and overgraft your branches that are there with, you could easily get to 10, 15 cultivars on one tree. Now, each of those branches will give you a bud stick or 2 or 3 bud sticks that you'll be able to, what did I say last time? Oh, 10x your existing planting in 2 years. And with bud sticks, you're really 10x and more much quicker. So if you like that, get a knife, get a roll of parafilm, get yourself some budding or grafting elastics, get yourself some bud sticks, and get grafting. Just start. Try it. And you know what? If you like that, stay tuned. There'll be more in the weeks to come. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Hey, please subscribe and check out our latest video. 3, 2, 1. This week, I want to 3, 2, 1. Oh, there's an icmonid wasp. Stop. This week, I want to show you. This week,